Good morning, YouTube. We're going to cover one more debate subject or one more political subject. Then we're going to wrap it up on this here. This next one is about Trump's relationship with, the Republican Party and his trustworthiness too, but also what will happen to politicians who are in the Republican Party who have gone against him if he gets into office. What kind of payback is there going to be? Ultimately, we're in a state right now, where we have a governor, John Kasich, who tried to run against Trump. Kasich, the only state he won was Ohio, surprisingly. He's been a complete turncoat and has not wanted to support Trump like as well as others, Paul Ryan, a few others. Ted Cruz didn't want to, but he came around somewhat, I guess, but I don't know how sincere I believe that, and there's a lot of, ultra-conservatives who don't really want to come around to Trump's side because they don't know what his trustworthiness. They ultimately have a hard time trusting him, which I understand because it's hard to go from being a Democrat, supporter to being a, Republican.
Well, I don't trust him.
Yeah, and if Trump gets in office, the first test of his trustworthiness is going to be what will happen if, when he gets to pick a Supreme Court, justice, will he?
If he picks a conservative, that's a good thing. If
Yeah.
he doesn't, well, yeah.
And last night he seemed to indicate he was willing to, because obviously, there's a big, obviously the Republicans in the Senate don't want Obama to pick another justice because they know what he's going to do and replacing one of the, ultimate conservative stalwarts on the justice, Anthony Scalia. Yeah. And, taking his position, there's only the only really true ultra-conservative, John Roberts, he's made some questionable decisions. I think Samuel Alito has proven to be pretty trustworthy so far.
What we need is Supreme Court justices who are neither progressive nor conservative. We need constitutionalists.
Constitutionalists.
The purpose of the Supreme Court is to determine if a law is in accordance with the Constitution.
Not to make laws from the base.
Laws, not to do this, that, and the other. It's to make sure laws and case law is friggin' applicable. Is in cooperation with the United States Constitution. If it's not, then it needs to be thrown out. And we have a lot of the issues I have with the Supreme Court nowadays is they tend to legislate from the bench.
Yeah, which a gay marriage thing, that's
exactly that's an example of legislating from the bench. You're making law as a judge. Your job as a judge is not to make the law. Your job as a regular judge is simply was the law broken, and if yes, person gets convicted. Now the purpose of the Supreme Court is not necessarily to determine if a person's guilty or innocent in the law, but to question the law itself.
Yep.
And they haven't been doing that. They've been taking their own political bias and interjecting it and not looking at things objectively like they're supposed to.
Yep.
So what we need are strict constitutionalists, not progressives, not conservatives, just people who will just look at things and go, okay, is this in accordance with the United States Constitution?
Yeah.
Does it jive with it? And if yes, then it stands. If it doesn't, then it's gone.
And
every branch of government is a fail-safe against the other
Yeah.
for tyranny. Because that's something that our founders were very worried about, was a tyrannical government. That's why we still have the Second Amendment. Because a lot of people talk about tanks and everything. Trust me, you can do quite a bit with what this country has as civilians. But that's besides the point. Each branch of government was a check on the other to prevent one of those branches from becoming tyrannical. Instead, what happens was when you have an executive office, which is headed by the president, is in collusion with very corrupt senators and representatives and they all decide to pick people who are of their political bend to the Supreme Court, well, now you've got a major issue. Because now they're all going to work together to push their agenda. You know?
Yeah.
What we need are strict constitutionalists, really in all forms of government. You know?
Yeah. And it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen to some of the Republicans who have went against Trump if he ends up getting elected.
I'm sure there'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, especially our governor here in Ohio, Kasich. I don't see him having much of a career, you know, left after, if Trump gets in office after he's went against him. You know, there's going to be hell to pay for some of these, because they're, I mean,
honestly,
like it or not, the American people have spoken. They want Trump. They're tired of political correctness, and there's Republicans who don't respect the wishes of the American public in that regard, that we're tired of politically correct, you know, politicians. You know, one article I was reading a while back, you know, I don't know that much about what the Republicans were like in the 50s and 60s, that said that Trump actually has more in common with the Republicans than what they care to admit. He's more of a throwback to what the party was in the 50s and in the 60s, but I really don't know that much about the history, and I guess that's part of his appeal to
Republicanism back then was fairly conservative, but not as conservative as it is nowadays. See, right around when John F. Kennedy got into office is when the Democrats and the Republicans kind of just switched ideologies to a degree.
Yeah.
The Democrats have
Became
always
more
been
liberal.
pretty racist. That's a big thing there, is race relations. Is the Democratic Party was the party during the Civil War that wanted to keep slavery. That promoted, you know, the white man and the black man type thing, you know, and promoted Jim Crow and promoted segregation. Now, in the 60s came, they kind of switched ideologies, but the Democrats kept the racism. You know, it just, they switched it from overt racism to more of, we're going to make you dependent upon the government so that you can't achieve anything on your own.
Yeah, which is sadly what's 50 years later, you know, you see a lot of people in bondage and poverty, you know,
which is a shame,
to the government.
The community really could achieve quite a bit if they applied themselves, but they don't want to because the government hands them everything. So the initiative to actually do something with their life is gone.
And it's funny, you know, and the support, you know, for the Democrats from their end, you know, what they don't want to talk about without getting into the police, you know, propaganda today. They don't really want to talk about how crime under Democratic presidents always goes up, and yet more blacks get imprisoned. You know, under President Clinton, there were more blacks that got incarcerated, probably under Obama, even though he's commuted, you know, the sentence of some of these, you know, people that have been in prison. I guess he's commuted more than the previous 10 or 12 presidents combined, but yet they don't really want to talk about the instability as far as, you know, the violence in their communities, as well as
that's on the verge of civil war.
Yeah, we're on the verge of civil war, and people don't realize
because
that.
You've got Black Lives Matter, which is going around. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, people don't understand their movement. You know, okay, yes, there may be some people associated with the Black Lives Matter movement that are peaceful. However, the vast majority, and what is very vocal and very visible, all are violent thugs.
Yeah.
And
if you're gonna say,
there's times where white people are having the shit beat out of them by Black Lives Matter supporters,
and you know,
and we aren't gonna stand for that much longer.
Yeah, and you know what people don't understand is, nobody's disputing that police brutality against regular citizens, whether they're black, white, or Latinos, is not a problem, because this is a problem. But if you're gonna say, you know, whoever's lives matter or whatever, you got to be consistent with the message. You just can't cherry pick, you know, and say
you
without.
Can't say, oh well, these people were killed by police, so therefore, you know, they must have been doing nothing wrong. But yet, you know, that's one of my issues with Black Lives Matter is that they only really champion people who were killed by police while as resisting arrest or being armed and, you know, putting up some kind of resistance to law enforcement. That's an issue I have. A lot of these cases, with the exception of one, which is the case in New York with the guy selling cigarettes, the use of force, in my opinion, was authorized. Bear in mind, I do know what I'm talking about. I do have law enforcement training. So, the use of force, in my personal opinion, is authorized in those circumstances, with the exception of, I believe it was Eric Gardner in New York.
Yeah.
That was wholly just inappropriate. But they don't really champion the victims of various other crimes, like black on black crime, which is how the majority of violence in the United States is.
And which they're not even that. You know, they're only like 15 or 20% of our population.
Well, actually, they're about 14% last time I checked. But they are responsible for 51% of violent crime. You know, and yet they're going, oh, well, more white people are killed by cops than
something that Trump mentioned a couple times, and he's absolutely right. You know, the blacks as well as the Latinos, they're absolutely suffering and dying in the inner cities because there's schools in the inner cities, especially here in Dayton.
We need better schools if we're going to prop up minorities anyway.
Yeah, and you know, Dayton public schools were ranked the worst public schools in the state. So Dayton is the epitome of that. So, you know, I think Mr. Trump as well as Miss Clinton should visit the schools around the inner cities, especially in cities like Dayton. And especially,
I have a friend of mine who went to Dayton Public, and bear in mind, I went to a suburban high school. You know, I'm what most people call intellectual. I'm very well read and everything. But every time he gets something wrong, his excuse is always, well, I went to Dayton Public. What do you expect?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like a catch-all phrase for, well, yeah, our school system sucks, and that just goes to show in the inner city, your school systems suck. And you know what? You really gotta fix that system if you're going to improve the lives of those in the inner city. Because education is key to getting a better job.
And make it a better life.
The blue-collar jobs in this world are dwindling, or at least in Ohio.
Especially jobs that you can get without education. Especially jobs that you can get without much education, because, you know, we aren't going to see the economy that we did after World War II. You know, where people can, move in mass, where they can move their whole families to whatever town in this part of the country they wanted to, of course. Exactly. Back then,
somewhere you're stuck there if you have a job.
Yeah, you're stuck there, and back in those days, of course, we don't have the families back then, even if we had that kind of renaissance again, which we won't have that kind of renaissance happen again. Those days are long gone, but I would invite, Miss Clinton, of course, Trump is gonna be honest and is gonna tell you, that your schools are horrendous, and they are. Hillary Clinton, I guarantee you, if she visited the schools, I know even though the blacks tend to be extremely paranoid of Trump for whatever reason, I think they think he's gonna take them. They think Trump is not gonna attack the people like that. Trump's gonna go after the people that shouldn't be here, that are unjustly leeching. I mean, he's not out to go after those, people. But Trump would be honest enough to say that, hey, your schools are struggling. What can I do to fix it? Hillary's gonna just pretend, everything's all honky dory and that everything's all right, because that's ultimately
a fantasy world in which the world is perfect, and we'll all sit around and sing kumbaya.
Kumbaya, which that ain't gonna happen.
Not, do anything to get over on one another or hurt each other.
Yeah.
That's not how the world works. The world is filled with predators, that have two legs and a brain, and they're not going to abide just by laws just because they are the laws. Force has to be applied in that circumstance, and. Yes, it might be, a nice, socialism and communism might work all well and fine in theory. In practice, it's been shown it does not work. At least not on any kind of national scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what liberals are, and what I've come to realize in my 28 years of life, is that they are idealists. They very much believe that, if we just do this, that, and the other, things will be perfect. They believe in humanity, which is great. That really is. But it's also very childish and naive, because of the fact that you can't count on humanity to do the right thing all the time. It's not going to.
No, because if humans will do the wrong thing. I mean,
So
it's
you have
much
to
easier.
account for human nature.
Yep, and that's
And we
true.
don't.
But ultimately, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this, as well as how many of the, if Trump does get in office, how many of the Republicans like Kasich are going to try and bend their fences, or if they're just going to say the hell with it and just tuck their tail between their legs and just run away. You know, but you know, we're in real trouble as a country, you know. But ultimately, things are just going to continue to get worse, especially here in the inner cities. But anyway, YouTube, that's going to be it for this one.